Here are just 16 risks if you have any amount of drink or drugs before you drive. And there are many more. But before we get into those, if you are new to me, I'm Daniel Shensmith, a barrister of England and Wales, and I really enjoy helping you to understand law. So I'd be very grateful if you hit that like button and subscribe at any point if you find this video useful. So right in at number 1, this one is a little bit more rare now than it used to be. However, it's still valid. Your insurance company might void your insurance if you are found to have any amount of alcohol or drugs in your system, even if you're not over the limit and even if you're not unfit to drive through drink or drugs. This is, as I say, more rare than it used to be, but if you look in your small print, and I'm a lawyer, so I do, some insurance companies will have in their small print that they will void your insurance if you're found to have any substance in your body like that. Number 2 is closely related because it is highly likely that your insurance company will void your insurance if you are over the limit to drive, whether it's drink or drugs. So again, I can virtually guarantee you'll find something like that in the small print of your insurance policy. So again, worth checking that out. Not that anyone should really be driving if you're over the limit, but nonetheless, it'll be in your insurance policy. For number 3, likewise, it is likely to void your insurance whether you're over the limit or not if you are unfit to drive, whether it's through drink or drugs. If you are unfit to drive, then your insurance company might well say that your insurance is void because you shouldn't be driving if you are unfit to do so, whether that's through drink or drugs. And that's number 4. This applies not just to drink, but it also applies to any kind of drugs. Number 5 is closely linked to that. I'm not just talking about illegal drugs here. This even applies to prescription drugs. Whilst you are usually going to be okay if you are taking them in accordance with the instructions and the prescription from your doctor, however, you can still be impaired and it can still void your insurance. So even if you're driving in accordance with that prescription, if that means that you are unfit to drive, and that determination can be made, then again, you need to be careful because your insurance company might come back and say that you are void for your insurance purposes. Number 7 is about your, number 6, if your insurance is void, not only is your car damage not going to be covered, but you're likely to be liable for any third-party damage as well, because your insurance policy, as you're probably aware, is not just valid for your vehicle, but it's for third-party as well. That is the minimum legal requirement in the United Kingdom, and that is third-party insurance. But if your insurance is void, not only is it not going to cover you, but it's not going to cover the third party as well. So it's going to amount to an offence, and not only an offence, if you are sued for those damages, you're going to have to pick up those damages. Number 7, sticking with the medical side of things, is medical disclosure. If you fail to disclose any medical condition or disability that could affect your ability to drive safely, including the effects of any prescription drugs that might result in impairing your driving, then again, you could have your insurance being voided because we have a policy where we have to be open with our insurers and they will ask you any questions like this and you'll need to answer those honestly. We'll come back to the honesty bit a little bit later. Number 8 is about convictions and premiums on the assumption that you get convicted for one of these things. If you have been convicted of a drink or drug-related driving offence, then it is likely to significantly increase your driving premiums for several years. Not only that, you are likely to find that some insurers will just flat out refuse to insure you, giving you very slim pickings of who you do take your insurance with, and that is likely to be expensive. In at number 9, we have insurance claims and fundamental dishonesty. I said I would come back to this one. In the event of an accident where you are under the influence, you are going to have to be completely, fully, frankly honest with your insurance company, and they will thoroughly investigate it. And if there's any discrepancy that is found within that investigation, again, that could lead to not necessarily voiding the insurance policy and not necessarily cancelling it, but certainly could lead to rejection of the claim because you haven't been honest with them. In some cases, in the worst of cases, this might be discovered later. And then you go back to court sued by the insurance company themselves for all of the money they might already have paid out under the insurance policy. under a principle we call fundamental dishonesty. And so if you are found to have been fundamentally dishonest with that insurance company, you might end up getting sued for the full amount that they might have paid out under the policy. Not only that, it gets worse. In many of these situations, you might have your insurance policy cancelled. You might remember the question in signing up for insurance, have you ever had a policy cancelled? Well, that is because many insurance companies are not going to insure you or accept you as a customer if you've ever had an insurance policy cancelled. That is their choice to make. And engaging in drink or drug driving can very well lead to the cancellation of your policy. And this might make it difficult or even impossible to get another insurer to cover you. And if you do, I can virtually guarantee you can double it, triple it, or just add a zero for what they are willing to insure you for by way of premiums. Not only that, if we go right through to conviction, then you have a criminal record. This is in at number 11, because being caught drinking or taking drugs under the influence, over the limit, or unfit to drive is going to lead to a record, and you are going to have to disclose that record in a number of different scenarios, and this will have long-term repercussions. Not only are you going to have to disclose that to your insurer in the future, but you're also going to have to disclose it in a number of different situations, such as your employer. Your employer might ask you whether you've had anything so much as more than a speeding ticket, then you'll have to disclose it to them as well. And again, if you don't disclose it and they find out later, they do a full DBS check, or if you're working in a school or with children or vulnerable people and they do an enhanced one and they get all of the details and you haven't disclosed those to them, then they might just dismiss you. And then they might sue you for the money that they've paid you for breach of your employment contract, because again, you haven't been completely honest with them. But now we move on to the very real effects of these collisions. We can talk about personal injury claims, because if you're involved in an accident whilst you are either unfit or you're over the limit through drink or drugs, then it's not only going to be difficult to have any claim at all, but it's going to be difficult, if not impossible, to claim any compensation for personal injuries that you might suffer as a result of this collision. So not only is it not going to pay your vehicle damage, the third-party damage, all of which is going to be at your expense, but if you have personal injuries that then leads you to lose your job, let's say because you can't work and so on, then it's not going to cover any of those as well. In at number 13 is literally moving aside, but in the same remit that we're talking about with these personal injuries. If you have a passenger and you are driving over the limit or unfit through drink or drugs, you have a collision and you and your passenger are injured, your best friend who was sitting in the passenger seat next to you might suddenly turn into your enemy, because they might end up suing you for the costs of whatever it is that they will incur through personal injuries that they suffered as a result of you driving either unfit or over the limit through drink or drugs. And if your insurance policy doesn't pay out for the reasons we've described, they might be suing you as well. So they won't be your best friend for very long. Number 14, there may well be a mandatory rehabilitation, particularly if it's involving the use of drink while you're driving. And this is also something that you're going to have to declare in future premiums, and you're going to have to declare in other situations as well. Number 15, this is quite a poignant one, because all of these legal arguments cost money, at least unless you do it yourself, which you're probably not advised to do. But if you remember that little tick box on most insurance where you pay £20-30 or sometimes more for legal fees cover, this again is going to disappear if you are found to be in breach of the small print of these policies, where you've been caught driving over the limit of drink or drugs or unfit for each of those, and your insurance might then refuse to pay out or cover any of the legal fees that arise from an accident for both you and if you're found to be liable for the other side. So they can claim their legal fees against you as well, which on any day of the week is going to be at least £8,000-9,000 upwards. So any of these situations that are anything more than just the most minor collision, you're going to have thousands of pounds of adverse legal costs against you from the other side. Finally, at number 16, which is where I decided to cut the list because there'll be dozens of these, is one that perhaps many people haven't thought of. You may have a country that you like to travel to, a certain place you like to go on holiday to. Now, international travel is something that is affected, and people are surprised that it's affected if you've been found to be drink driving, drug driving, or just unfit through any of the above. If you intend to drive abroad, certainly it's going to have an impact on whether you can rent a vehicle over there or get insurance to drive a vehicle over there. And not only that, it could be even worse than that. Some countries have limitations and restrictions, flat out bar to anybody going to that country if you have certain convictions, particularly if they relate to drugs. So some countries are just not going to let you in if you have any conviction that has got anything to do with drugs, and that is even if it's a prescription drug. So even if, let's say, you've got a prescription drug, you're taking it properly, but you are unfit because you may have either accidentally taken too many, or you haven't eaten, or you're just unfit to drive because of those drugs, because it doesn't take that away. Then if you've got a conviction that's related to drugs, some of these countries might just say that you're not allowed into the country at all. This is something that a lot of people don't realize. So it's always important to proactively check your insurance policy just so that you know what you are covered for and not covered for. But of course, the default guidance to all of this is don't drink if you're going to drive. Certainly don't do any illegal drugs at all, but certainly not if you're going to drive. And if you have prescription drugs, then at the very, very least, you should make sure that you're taking them in accordance with your prescription and any precautions that you need to take. But again, the guidance is unless you have to, then you should avoid driving. But if you do have to drive and you've got prescription drugs, then you must make sure that you are fit to drive. Because if you are unfit to drive, then this can also cause serious problems. I hope that was useful. Please do hit the like button and subscribe if you do find these video guidance useful. And in the meantime, thank you for watching.